All right, we are back. We are back. Hope everyone had a great first session of the new year, now trading into 2024. Quick end of day recap here. A few things to discuss regarding the index. So, coming into the session, we were looking at fairly large gap lower. Price was gapping through that prior day low. You can see the overnight move here in ES, looking at the 30-minute chart here, ES trading down through that prior day low, Friday's low volume session. Now, during the pre-market live stream, I had mentioned the main watch for me personally was going to be how price traded versus this 47.75 level. And again, the significance of this level, you can see it right here, is the near-term volume point of control, which, as a reminder, essentially what that means is all the volume through this range has transacted at 47.75. So it is going to be a fairly significant level in the near term, right? We're usually going to see some decent action versus that near-term volume point of control, depending on the structure that we are trading with. Now, today we did see a pretty decent bounce versus that 47.75 level. You could have scalped it on multiple occasions. I traded the initial bounce versus that zone. However, later in the morning, we did see nice follow through up into that 4,800 area, really the prior day low. If you take a look at the prior day low right here, it is about 97. So a test of the prior day low, sellers step back in, and we resolve lower. Price resolves lower to make fresh session lows. Bit of a bounce here into the close. Essentially what we want to see tomorrow is whether or not sellers can show any follow through of today's move. Now, the main structure, despite today's selling, if I flip back to the 30-minute, the main structure at play here, this kind of 2 to 3 week range, is still in play. We don't have a range breakdown on ES. NQ is showing a slightly different picture, so we'll take a look at that in a moment. But as far as ES is concerned, still trading within the near-term range. And again, you can see the interest here versus that near-term volume point of control. So 47.75 is going to remain definitely a level of interest for tomorrow's session, kind of depending on what that overnight action looks like. If sellers do manage to show some follow through, we do have the near-term range low down into 47.50, and then really kind of the bigger level at play here is the prior 52-week high. You can see this blue zone right through here, that 47.30 down into 47.20. Now, this is going to be a very important area if we do get down there into this kind of 47.50, 47.30 area. I'm going to be real cautious in this area simply because we do have daily structure right through there. You do have the rising 21 MA, which a lot of traders are going to be looking at. And then you also have the prior 52-week high. So this will likely, if price gets down into this zone, this will likely be an area where I will be just avoiding any trading through that zone and kind of just watching how the higher time frames develop through those areas. Anytime price is trading in kind of those more important pivots where you have confluence of kind of a lot of things coming together, that can be a more challenging area to be trading. You're going to have a lot of fake outs. You're going to have a lot of whipsaw. Personally, like to stay hands off when we have price testing those zones. So tomorrow, just to keep it simple, we'll be looking at 47.75 and then today's low down into 47.66. Again, depending on what that overnight and pre-market action is looking like. So that's ES. Flipping over to NQ here. Now, kind of the interesting thing about the tech-heavy NASDAQ, something I overlooked this morning, was actually the big gap down in Apple. As you guys know, I look at Apple pretty frequently simply because of how it is weighted in the index, how the weighting is in NASDAQ as well as the S&P ES. It's a heavy hitter, right? You have a big proportion of both of the indices that is going to be Apple. So if Apple is putting in a big move on higher than average volume, that's definitely worth keeping an eye on. You want to be aware of that. This morning we did have that big gap down in Apple, did show follow through selling on that gap down, no real bounce there versus that rising 50 MA. And that's kind of why we had, at least in my opinion, the divergence between NQ and ES. We did see NQ showing really relative weakness versus ES. I mean, definitely way weaker compared to ES. You actually have on NQ here, you actually have a break of that structure. So this is a little bit of a change in character. It's pretty minor because this pullback, this single day pullback is quite shallow, and price did not really make a significant new high following that. And so I'm not giving a lot of emphasis on this low right here, 16,775, but it is something that we want to be keeping an eye on, as well as kind of the rising 21 MA up here. Now, the real structure when we zoom out on the daily chart is obviously this white dashed line right through here, prior 52-week high, and then you do have that multi-week consolidation right through here. So a test down into the 16,450 is definitely not out of the question if sellers continue to show up tomorrow. Now, if you are, just to play devil's advocate here on the flip side, if you are someone who missed the entirety of these two rallies, you're going to be eager to be looking for a spot to buy. And a logical spot for anyone who may have missed, this 8 to 9 week rally is going to be that rising 21 MA, right? That's going to be a reversion to the mean, generally speaking, on the daily chart. And so we kind of want to see how is NQ going to be trading essentially versus today's low and this 16,700 level. That's going to be a pretty significant level for the rest of this week in NQ. And of course, you want to be keeping an eye on Apple just to kind of see what we have here. Are they going to continue to sell this thing or not? We'll see. We will see. Definitely, you do have a structural breakdown of this recent action. You do have a move down through the 50 MA. So we'll kind of see how that plays out. Now, we do have the FOMC minutes tomorrow. Generally speaking, it's more of a non-event, but just something to keep in mind. We'll have some volume around that 2 p.m. mark when those FOMC minutes are released. As far as individual names, scans were quite dry. I did just have the Moderna. This did have some fresh news, some new product that they are releasing. You can see the volume today. Pretty big volume, almost 300% daily average volume. So tomorrow I'll be looking at the second day play here in Moderna up through the 200 MA on the daily chart. And then in sympathy with that was the Johnson & Johnson J&J. Decent setup here if it can show some follow through. So we'll be keeping an eye on that as well. It is off season for the individual names, meaning we are out of that earnings season. So generally speaking, stocks in play, they do need some type of catalyst. They do need some type of news. And so you won't see me featuring a lot of individual names in the pre-market prep notes, simply because there really is a lack of catalyst currently. So that's about it for today. Again, hope everyone had a great start to the year. Just as a recap, tomorrow, again, we're going to be looking primarily at how prior day low, which would be today's low, is treated in both ES and NQ. Near-term range trading continues in the S&P. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning for the pre-market prep live stream. Have a great afternoon.